Not all cities die because of disasters. Some die in order, archived, relocated, abandoned, then forgotten. They're not just empty dots on a map. They are decisions, failures, and frozen moments of change. This list isn't about haunted towns or photogenic ruins. It's about places once lived in, then deemed unnecessary by the economy, by the state, or by time itself. From failed colonial settlements, bankrupt canal towns, mining villages left by companies, to small communities now living only in archives. Henricus is one of the most tragic towns in early American history. Founded in 1611 on the edge of the James River, it was once meant to become Virginia's capital, even more important than Jamestown. This was where the first church, first hospital, and early English colonial education projects were built. But all of it collapsed within years. In 1622, a massive attack by the Powhatan Confederacy killed nearly all its people. Henricus was never rebuilt. Today, Henricus has no residents, no government, and no city function at all. All that remains is empty land and a historical replica called Henricus Historical Park, built on the town's original site. Henricus wasn't a town that slowly faded away. It vanished all at once, a pure ghost town, even before the idea of the United States existed. If Henricus died from violence and time, vanishing before America was born, then Bigler's Mill shows another side of how a city can die, intentionally erased by a modern state. Bigler's Mill was once a quiet rural community in York County. It never became a big city, but it functioned. Farms, homes, churches, and families who knew one another. It didn't fall due to war or economic collapse. It was alive, until the government decided it shouldn't exist. During World War II, Camp Peary's expansion needed space. Bigler's Mill was in the wrong spot. Land was forcibly bought, people were relocated, buildings demolished. There was no slow decline, no fading town center. This town was shut down all at once. Matildaville is an example of a town that failed because it pinned all hope on one big dream. Built in the late 18th century along the Potomac River, Matildaville was meant to support the Potomac Canal, an ambitious project to open major trade routes into inland America. On paper, it looked promising. Inns, warehouses, worker housing, even canal offices. But the reality was much harsher. The canal had problems from the start. Currents were too strong, costs ballooned, and railroads quickly outpaced the canal. When the canal lost relevance, Matildaville sank economically too. There was no war, no forced removal. People just left, one by one. The town completely failed before it ever truly lived. Today, only stone ruins remain inside Great Falls Park, slowly swallowed by the forest and river. Meanwhile, the Pocosin Mission slowly disappeared without ever being marked as a major failure. It stood isolated in the Blue Ridge Mountains, originally a small missionary community serving the remote people of Virginia. There were no major industries, no key trade routes, just a church, simple wooden homes, and a life entirely dependent on the community itself. The problem was, the isolation that was once its strength turned into a weakness. As modern roads, centralized schools, and economic centers shifted to the valleys and big cities, Pocosin Mission got left behind. The young moved out, the population aged, homes were left one by one. There was no dramatic collapse. The town faded. In the end, Pocosin Mission stopped functioning as a living community. No grand replicas, no big information boards, just silence and earth slowly swallowing the traces of human life. If Pocosin Mission vanished through isolation and time, Wash Woods was a town defeated directly by nature. It once stood on the southern tip of Virginia's Barrier Islands, in what is now False Cape State Park. Unlike many ghost towns, it was once quite active. There was a school, a post office, stores, and a fishing and farming community that depended on the sea and coastal land. But the same location that gave it life also brought its end. A major storm in 1933, followed by constant shoreline erosion, struck Wash Woods again and again. Farmland turned into salty marsh. Roads were cut off. Salt water seeped into wells and homes. All that remains are church ruins, old graves, and foundation traces hidden behind coastal woods. Wind and sand have covered what was once daily life. Falling Creek is an example of a town left behind because the world moved in another direction. It was once an early community in central Virginia, supported by ironworks, mills, and local transport routes. Its location made sense at the time, close to flowing water, enough to keep a small economy running for the people. But that advantage was fragile. As main transport lines shifted, technology changed, and economic centers moved elsewhere, Falling Creek lost its purpose. No major railways came through. No new industry replaced the old. Falling Creek was slowly, quietly abandoned. The empty homes didn't collapse. They were simply no longer lived in. Activity vanished, and the town's name itself slowly faded from public memory. Carvins Cove is a town that was literally erased from the face of the earth. It used to be a small community near Roanoke, living off farming and ordinary village life. There was no sign the town would die. In fact, it was stable, quiet, and full of life, until it was seen as more valuable as water than as a place for people to live. In the 1940s, the government decided to build the Carvins Cove Reservoir to supply clean water to the Roanoke Valley. That decision meant one thing: the town had to go. Houses were emptied, residents relocated, and the entire area was intentionally flooded. The town was killed by technocratic planning. Today, Carvins Cove is completely out of sight. It lies underwater, roads, foundations, and traces of old life hidden at the bottom of the reservoir. Only during extreme droughts do a few stone structures briefly reappear, reminding us a town once existed there. After Carvins Cove, which was drowned for water needs, we moved back to land, to a ghost town that died slowly and quietly, without explosions, without floods. Monroe was once a small soapstone mining town in the Blue Ridge Mountains. From the late 19th century into the early 1900s, it lived on one thing: mining. Worker housing, small shops, a school, and a short rail line grew in rhythm with the mine. As long as soapstone sold, Monroe stayed alive. The problem? Monroe had only one lifeline. When demand for soapstone fell and the mine shut down in the early 20th century, the town instantly lost its reason to exist. There was no economic backup, no major transport line, no institution to keep people rooted. One by one, homes were abandoned and began to rot. If Monroe died because one industry slowly dried up, then Lignite is an example of a town that collapsed the moment its machine shut off. Lignite existed because of lignite coal, low-grade coal once seen as promising in the early 20th century. The town was essentially a company town. Homes, stores, and daily life fully depended on the mine's operation. As long as the company ran, Lignite lived. When the mine stopped, the town had no backup plan. Once the deposit was no longer seen as profitable and the company pulled out, Lignite's residents left almost at once. There were no other job options, no nearby regional center to absorb the workforce. Now, Lignite is almost fully overtaken by vegetation. The old homes and industrial structures are just skeletal remains, unmaintained, unused, and without a new story to tell. Now we arrive at a ghost town whose death was quieter and crueler, abandoned simply because people stopped passing through. Union Level was once a small town that thrived because of the railroad. It stood at a transport junction, where farmers sold crops, passengers came and went, and small shops survived on the steady flow of people. It wasn't rich, but it worked. The problem was, Union Level meant nothing without the train. When the rail line was redirected and traffic stopped, the town's pulse quickly faded. There was no major industry, no school or government institution to keep people in place. Slowly but surely, businesses closed, homes emptied, and the younger generation left for towns still connected to the outside world. Today, Union Level is little more than a name on an old map. A few buildings might still stand, but as remnants, not a community. Pamplin City is a ghost town that lost its own economic purpose, even though its location was actually strategic. It once grew as a small industrial and farming town along the Appomattox River. In the late 19th century, it ran on tobacco processing, milling, and the railroad. There was a small town center, trading activity, and a fairly stable working community. Pamplin City wasn't wealthy, but it served its role. Then, industrial growth changed direction. As factories shut down and railroads lost their economic value, Pamplin City began to empty from the inside. Unlike Union Level, which died suddenly, Pamplin City shrank slowly, businesses closed one by one, young people left, and the town center lost its reason to exist. Today, Pamplin City is still on the map, but its soul is already gone. Let's go far back in time to the earliest ghost town and the most legendary. Jamestown isn't just a dead town, it was a failed beginning. Founded in 1607 as the first permanent English settlement in North America, Jamestown was once meant to become the heart of a thriving colony. The reality was brutal. Disease, starvation, conflict with native peoples, and a deadly swampy location kept the town from ever finding stability. During the starving time in 1609, hundreds of settlers died. Jamestown did survive for a few decades, but it never truly recovered. When the colonial capital moved to Williamsburg in 1699, Jamestown lost its last official role. After that, it was abandoned, slowly, then completely. Today, Jamestown is an archaeological and historical site, not a town. There are no residents, no daily life. Meanwhile, Clinchport is an example of a small town that quietly died on the edge of the modern era. Located in Scott County, in a narrow valley near the Clinch River, it once survived as a railroad town and small farming community, supporting the movement of crops and passengers in southwestern Virginia's Appalachian region. It wasn't large, but it was active enough to support shops, a school, and family homes. The problem? Clinchport was too small to stand on its own. When railroads declined and Appalachia's economy began to weaken, especially with mining losses and outward migration, Clinchport was pulled under too. People left for work in bigger towns, and those who stayed grew fewer and older. Today, Clinchport still has residents, but in very minimal condition. This town shows all the signs of being left behind. Unlike a full ghost town, Duffield was once an important railroad town along the Norfolk and Western Railway line. It was once fairly lively, with a small town center, a school, a church, and businesses serving the nearby rural region. But Duffield faced the classic Appalachian story: dependence on transport and a shrinking regional economy. As rail lost importance and jobs in Southwest Virginia grew scarce, Duffield began losing residents. Young people left, local shops closed, and the town center lost its energy. It didn't collapse overnight, but eroded year by year. Today, Duffield still has people living there, but the signs of decline are clear: a small population, limited economic activity, and many old buildings no longer fully in use. Welch often gets included when people talk about ghost towns in Virginia, even though it's technically in West Virginia. But it makes sense. Its condition feels more ghostly than many of the towns actually in Virginia. Welch was once the capital of McDowell County and was even called the Little New York of Appalachia. At its peak in the 1940s, the town was fully supported by coal. It had big hotels, movie theaters, department stores. The town truly thrived. Then coal collapsed. When the mining industry fell apart, Welch lost almost everything at once: jobs, population, and its regional role. Today, the population is down to around 1,700, with poverty and unemployment rates among the worst in Appalachia. The town center is full of empty, crumbling, and abandoned buildings, not quaint historic ruins, but the remains of a modern economic death.